There was a huge pot on the stove in the kitchen of this village house, and upon entering, they knew it wasn't looking good. After looking closely, it was confirmed to the police that their search for the Hong Kong socialite Abby Choi was over. She wasn't missing anywhere else. She didn't run away. She was right there, in the soup pot. Hi, I'm Serenityyy, and today I'm going to tell you a story. Today's case mentions of violence and murder and dismemberment, so if you're sensitive to such themes, I suggest you skip this and watch something else. Well, to be precise, her head was there in the soup pot, and as gruesome as it sounds, the police couldn't stop after just finding the skull boiling in the soup pot. Where was the rest of her body? Inside the village house, the police found a meat grinder, an electric saw, 2 soup pots containing human tissue with 2 meat cleavers, a hammer, face shield, and other tools used for the murder. Looking at these tools, one thing was clear. Choi's body had to have been dismembered and placed somewhere. After more searching, they found her legs and parts of her body in the refrigerator. Now, if they pieced all the parts of the body together, they would find that there were still parts that were missing and were nowhere to be found in the house, which means they were probably disposed of somewhere else. Let's start from the beginning. Who was Abby Choi, and how did her head end up in a soup pot in a village house days after she went missing? Abby Choi, born in 1994, was an influencer and a model with over 100,000 followers on Instagram. If you go to her account, you can still see her posts are up. She's elegant, she's beautiful. You'll see pictures of her in designer clothes on the cover of magazines and fashion shows. To sum up, she was this beautiful, wealthy Hong Kong socialite. And apart from this glam social life, Abby was also a great mother to 4 kids. According to a friend of Choi, she met her first husband, Alex Kwong, when she was 15. They were young and in love and decided to get married when Choi was just 18. They went on to have 2 kids, but somewhere along the way, Choi and Kwong grew up and realized that the marriage wasn't working out anymore. And after 4 years of marriage, they got a divorce in 2016. Now, this goes to show you what kind of a person Choi was. Even after their divorce, her relationship with her in-laws was so good that she was still taking care of them financially. She gave them a luxury apartment to live in. She gave them monthly allowances, paid all their bills, basically took care of everything for them. After the divorce, Choi then met Tam Chok-kwan. I'm sorry for the bad pronunciation. I don't know how to pronounce this. Who was the son of this wealthy businessman in Hong Kong who had founded this casual chain restaurant at the time. And Kwan also went by the name Chris, so I'm going to use that since Kwan and Kwang can be a bit confusing. So Choi and Chris didn't officially register their marriage, but they had a ceremony and rituals, that signified their bond. But they weren't married on paper. During this whole time, Choi is still paying for her ex-in-laws. She also had a great relationship with her ex-husband's relatives, so much so that she referred to his brother as her brother. So to be a little more supportive, Choi hired Anthony, her brother-in-law, as her personal driver. He was pretty close with her, would drive her everywhere she went. He was a pretty integral part of her life, and she trusted him with everything. She would have never thought that this relationship with him would cost her her life. Things were going great with her ex-in-laws until Choi decided to sell the luxury apartment she bought for her ex-in-laws and her husband. This apartment was sort of a gift from Abby to her in-laws after the divorce, and although she paid for it, it was registered under her ex-husband's father's name. Choi was not only this pretty Instagram star who only cared about fashion shows and posting online and spending. She came from a wealthy family and had a net worth of over $17 million. And her plan of selling this luxury apartment was to expand her real estate portfolio and invest in something, buy another property or so. The Kwong family was very used to this luxury that they got for free. I mean, they live in this apartment, they have all their expenses paid. They didn't really have to worry about anything other than receiving from Abby. So this decision of selling their apartment left a sour taste in their mouths, and they didn't like the direction that Abby was going in. Although Abby promised that she would shift them into another house, they didn't really like it. Her financial rearrangements angered the Kwong family to the point where they started plotting her murder. The mastermind behind this whole murder plan was her ex-father-in-law, Alex's father, who was a retired police officer. According to the police, he rented out the village house mentioned at the start of the story. On Tuesday, February 21st, 2023, Anthony was supposed to have driven to meet Choi to pick up her daughter from school, as usual, but she failed to show up. Now, this was something really surprising and out of the ordinary since Choi always made sure to pick up her kids from school, even with her busy schedule, of course. She always made time for the kids. So when this happened, she was immediately reported missing. However, the truth is far from just a missing mother who failed to show up. An hour after the disappearance, CCTV footage shows two white 7-seater vehicles driving towards the village house. According to the investigation, it has been confirmed that one of the vehicles was driven by Anthony, her personal driver, and later on her ex-husband Alex has joined them. It is alleged that after a struggle, Abby was shot in the head and she died in the car. She was then brought to the village house where she was dismembered. The police say that as they entered the house, it was almost resembling a butcher shop with all the different tools. There was a sail covering all the walls of the house, and it was far from a normal looking house. It was very suspicious, and their suspicions were confirmed when they discovered Choi's purse, ID, and credit card in the house. As I mentioned before, there was an electric saw, a hammer, a meat grinder, face shields, black raincoats, 2 different chopping blades, and 2 pots of soup in the house. Abby disappeared and was murdered on 21st Feb. But after investigation, the police were led to the house approximately 3 days later, and that's when they found her skull, her ribs, and human tissue in the pots, with other parts in the refrigerator. This case was moving rather quickly. The police didn't take much time to note down the suspects of this crime. After investigation, it was pretty clear that her in-laws were involved. Choi's ex-brother-in-law Anthony, his ex-mother and father-in-law Cao and Jenny were arrested on Friday, which is 3 days after she initially went missing. But her ex-husband wasn't apprehended until Saturday because he was caught trying to board a speedboat to flee Hong Kong with roughly 64,000 USD cash and 510,000 USD in luxury watches. He was trying to get all his valuables and get out of there after murdering and dismembering his ex-wife. That's like what I don't understand. I have a problem with that. Why would you take luxury watches with you when you're trying to flee for your life? Like, okay, I get it. You can sell them and live on that money, but you already have cash. And I think it's even more suspicious if someone's trying to flee on a speedboat and they have like 10 luxury watches with them. I don't know how many watches he had, but that's still a lot of money. And I don't know. I feel like that was kind of a stupid decision. During this whole thing, the police were still looking for the rest of her body. They had search teams search landfills, nearby areas, cemeteries, sewage systems, just anything for any other pieces of her body. But the search remained unsuccessful and no leads were found. And as I said, the case was proceeding very quickly. On Sunday, Jenny, the mother-in-law, was charged with perversion of justice for destroying evidence that would have implicated her in Choi's murder. And an unnamed woman who was the 5th suspect in this case, and she was believed to be in a romantic relationship with the father-in-law Cao Kwong. She was also arrested for allegedly helping Cao rent the village house and where the dismemberment took place. So, what were the consequences of this gruesome murder? In Hong Kong, the death penalty before was the sole punishment for murder. However, according to the law now, there's mandatory sentence of life imprisonment for murder. Later on, Choi's mother filed a court injunction to prevent father-in-law from selling the property linked to her daughter's murder. In December 2023, Choi's ex-husband and two of her in-laws were charged with preventing Choi's burial. There were a total of 7 suspects. Besides the 4 family members and a mistress, there were 2 others charged with hiding the murderers and helping them escape after the act. The whole case shook up Hong Kong when it came to the public, because Hong Kong is considered to be a very safe place, and to think that such a crime took place here really shook up all the residents. The case went viral on the internet, and everyone mourned the loss of a beautiful mother, daughter, and wife. What a whole life ahead of her. Her kids were still young when this happened, so it's really hard to say if they even grasped the idea of what happened to their mother, and my heart breaks for them when they grow up and realize the kind of people murdered their mother. I mean, it's their father, how they'd grow up to resent him. Her current husband mourns her loss every day, and his children give him hope and courage to go on. And this is what people around Choi have to say about her. Her husband, Chris, described her as a kind-hearted and good person who always wanted to help others. She supported me and loved me very much. She also bought her 4 cute, obedient kids, and has been a blessing to be Abby's family and her friend. One of her friends, Cheng, told the Associated Press, "I haven't imagined that a person who is so good, so full of love, so innocent, a person who doesn't do anything bad, will be killed like this. My heart is still heavy. I can't sleep well." This was the murder of Abby Choi, a devastating case that shook up Hong Kong and the internet. It's really sad to see things like this happen to people who especially try their best to help others. Sometimes I feel like I'm so isolated from the rest of the world that when cases like these come up, I almost can't believe. It's hard to acknowledge these perpetrators are human, just like us, and not some kind of animals who did this out of their nature. I believe no amount of time in prison can lift the heavy feeling off the victim's family's heart. I'm not a fan of the justice system, but I really put my faith in this case so that Choi can rest in peace, knowing that somewhere in this world, the people who made her suffer are also leading a miserable life.